So I just wanted to show how to generate random numbers in Visual Basic. I thought the simplest way is just to make a program that has one big button, and when you press it, it generates a random number using this RND function. Now this is going to be a number, if you use this, it's going to be a number from 0.0, so a fractional number, up to 0.99999. So almost one, but it never would reach one actually. So if I run it, I'll just get an idea for what it's going to do. So if I hit this button here, it's going to run the R&D function, and in this message box, using messagebox.show, just a simple way to pop up the value, it generated 0.7055475. So some pretty random decimal number that's between 0 and 1. If I do it again, 0.5, 0.5, 0.2, so these numbers are all over the place, but none of them are exceeding 1. And this one's pretty low, but the lowest it could possibly be is 0.0. Pretty unlikely that'll come up though. So most of the time you really don't want these strange decimal numbers. So we'll talk about how to change that into an integer. But first, before I do that, let's say we want the number range to be bigger, not just between 0 and 1, maybe from 0 to 10. So if I just say, take that expression or that function return, and I say multiply that by 10. If I multiply 0 times 10, it's still 0. If I multiply 0.999 times 10, I'm going to get not quite 10, but I'll get 9.99999. So now it's any number between that range. And if I run it again just to see, just to confirm what it's doing, it looks like I'm getting number 7, still decimal numbers, 5, 5 again. So things that are in that range of from 0 to 9, eventually I'll get a 0, and eventually I would get a 9 coming up, but I'm not going to click it forever, so you'll just have to trust me. So that's good, but once again, I might not want it to be a decimal number. So to get rid of the decimal parts, what I could do is maybe I'll just make another variable y here, make it an integer, and what I could do is I could take int function, and I will cast x into an integer. And then I'm going to put both of these out on the screen. The and sign means to join something. So what I want to do is join this weird carriage return line feed, which basically means an enter key, and I'll join y. Hopefully that's not too confusing, but I just want to put them both together on the message box, one below the other. So the first thing here is my 7.0555475, and that is the number that got generated from here, a number between 0 and 9.99999. Then when I cast it to an int, it truncates it, meaning it gets rid of the decimal part and just gives you the whole number. So it always sort of rounds down, if you will. So this one goes down to 5. This one goes down to 5. Yeah. So these are all, getting rounded down. So the other thing you might notice is every time that I run this, it's giving me the exact same number, which doesn't seem very random at all. So I will mention one other thing here. If you want it to be truly random, you want to run this randomize command, because the computer is not creative, so it has to be told how to pick random numbers. So there's a mathematical algorithm to do that, and it always just starts in the sequence and starts just going through it one by one. But if you put randomize first, now we shouldn't get that same number. We should get a different one this time. Yeah, so there we go. It's totally different number, 0.97, etc. So it truncates and chops that off and makes it a 0. So we actually got the low end of our integer range. If this was 0.9999, or sorry, 9.999, that would truncate just to a 9. So really this range now here after inting it would go from 0 up to 9 at the most, right? So if I don't want to start at 0, how do I do that? So let's say I want to get the number 1 to 6 because I'm rolling a dice. Well, in that case, I would want to instead multiply by 6. This would give me, if I multiply by 6, 6 times 0 is still 0, but this would be not quite 6, so it would be 5.99999, right? Because the maximum this part could be would be 0.99999. So that's the range. So now if I want it to be an integer, I can cast it to an integer. That would leave me with, when I cast that to an integer, this would become a 5. So it would be 0 to a 5, which is 6 numbers, but I don't want them to start at 0. I want them to start at 1. And I don't want them to only go to 5. I want them to go to 6. So to shift that up, all I need to do here in my expression here is just say plus 1. Now when I run that, that's going to give me, if it gave me a 0, it's now going to be a 1. If it gave me a 5 at the highest, it would now be a 6. If I run this now, it should give me values between 1 and, yeah, so there we go. So a 3 got truncated to a 3, which when you add 1 becomes a 4. And I rolled a 4 again, and I rolled a 6, which is the highest I can get. And if you kept running that, you'd notice that the numbers are always between 1 and 6. So this seems pretty, to some this might seem fairly straightforward if you want to expand the range and multiply it by a number, and that's the number of numbers you'll get. The unfortunate pain is that you have to cast it to an int to make it an integer. And you'll always, if you want to shift the range up, you have to add some factor. So if I wanted it to be between 10 and 20, then I would have to add 10 to shift it up so it doesn't start at 1 anymore. So we could do that if you want to do 10 between 10 and 20. That's actually between 10 and 20 is actually 21 numbers, because if you count on your fingers from 10 to 20, it would be, including 10 would be, 10 and 20 is actually 11 numbers, between 10 to 20. So that would be this number would be from 0 to 9. And then if I add 10 to that, it would shift everything up. So previously, it would be 0 to, when you truncate that, it would be 0 to 10, which is actually 11 numbers. But then when you add the 10, that would shift this up from a 0 to a 10 and this to a 20. Right, so that would be how you generate that range. And I could demonstrate this again just to see if it is seemingly between 10 and 20. Yeah, that's between 10 and 20. Yeah, they seem to be, I don't want to sit here and click it all day, but they seem to be within the range here that I want. Yeah, so in general, if you don't want to use that, if you don't want to figure it out yourself, like how many numbers are there in my range, and then multiply by that number, and then shift it afterwards by adding or subtracting to move the whole range of numbers to the left or to the right, you can use a formula. So this down here is me using a formula to do this, and personally I don't really like the formula. I don't like memorizing things, but it's good if you just want to, especially if you want to ask the user for the low and the high end. Here in this part, we're saying, okay, what's the minimum value? Here it's 10 and up to 20. So again, the formula is going to be the biggest number minus the smallest number plus 1. So if you have a 20 minus 10, that's 10. Plus 1 is 20, or sorry, 11. And so that's where I get the 11 from. And so that's a number of numbers, a number of integers between 10 and 20. You can confirm that yourself if you want. So that number gets multiplied by the R&D function, and then this entire thing here gets inted, because remember, this is going to give you a decimal number. And then to shift it up or down, you just add the minimum. So that's where the plus 10 is. And you can do it all in one step. So do this whole thing here, and once you've got that number, turn it into an integer. Or actually, sorry, yeah, so that would work. We can try it. Yeah, just double check that works. Oh, I'm gonna have two message boxes here. First one and the second one. Second one just shows I only put the one number. So let me, if you want to, by the way, comment out a whole bunch of stuff, you can just highlight it and say comment selection, and it gets rid of it for now. It'll only run my second block of code here. And you can see that I've got numbers between 10 and 20. I hit 19 there, which is pretty high, but yeah, there we go again. So they all seem to be in the range. There's 20, so yeah, none are outside of the range. So that's the couple different ways to think about generating random numbers. I hope that helps.